folks. Welcome to yet another episode of WEDCOnomics, brought to you by Wolfeboro Community Television and Wentworth Economic Development Corporation. As you know, WEDCO is here to support small businesses through advising, financing, as well as promotion of the sector, which, as we all know, where we live, small business is the backbone of our economy. So, we're on site today. How's that for excitement, folks? I am absolutely thrilled to be at an undisclosed location with my good friend Bob Mueller. Bob, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jack, and welcome to the Mueller, McLean, Obed Boat Works. And the reason why it's a partnership is largely because when you're in the vintage race boat business, not too many people can, you can't have too many boats. So we have this facility here, and we have a number of interesting boats which we'll be talking about here.
I really look forward to it. This is something new for me. It's obvious to me, though, not only can you not have enough boats, but you can't have enough wallets to do something like this. Hey, we're in front of a boat here, Bob. I wanted to just ask you about it. Name is Sassy, and it's beautiful. Is it vintage?
Yes, it's part of the vintage class as defined by the American Powerboat Association. And when it's defined as vintage, it can run in vintage events. Vintage events for the that are sanctioned by the American Powerboat Association are not really racing per se. They're exhibition racing. So we try to make it look like racing as much as we can without creating any kind of a dangerous situation. So. And we're very successful at it, particularly here in Wolfeboro. We've been very successful. This particular boat is a Jersey speed skiff. It was a boat that its roots are in the waters off the Jersey Shore and Barnegat Bay in New Jersey. And it used to be wooden boats. This one's fiberglass. The wooden boats were developed by young entrepreneurial, daring men who decided to put big engines in wooden dories and make them go fast. And then, of course, they they eventually got into being fiberglass, and that's why this boat, it's a class in the vintage event, and we will have these boats running in Wolfeboro in September.
So, but in order to be called vintage, are there certain rules that must be followed, or age that must, or how do you get to be classified as a vintage boat?
Well, vintage is generally ascribed to boats that were built in a different era, and that goes back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even before that. I mean, back in the old days, the way they built wooden boats was not as durable as the ones that they build now, so you don't see too many of the original race boats in the events that we run in, but they do exist, and it's a good point. The APBA, the American Powerboat Association, determines the definition of vintage classes of boats. So that's all of these boats here that we're talking about fall into the vintage category. This boat, another boat we're talking about, was built in 1972, so it gives you an idea.
Yeah. So let's go take a look. But by definition, therefore, you and I both qualify as vintage. This is also fiberglass, Bob?
No, this boat is mahogany, and it was only built a few years ago. It's a replica of a Garwood Speedster, which is what it was called, which was actually a 16-foot long boat that only had about 100 horsepower, and the boat was originally built by Garwood, who was a famous boat builder back in the 30s, the late 30s. So his friends up in the Thousand Islands would have boats to race each other on weekends, and This boat is actually 21 feet long, and of course it has a lot more horsepower than those original boats had. This one has about 600 horsepower, and
Wow.
its top speed is somewhere around 75 miles an hour. So
That's beautiful.
yeah, it's a gorgeous boat, and it runs really well. It handles well for lots of reasons, which I won't go into, but it's a really, really good boat.
This looks like a big block direct drive.
It's actually it's a small block.
Small block.
It is essentially direct drive. It does have a transmission in it, but it's a small block Chevy that was specially built. It's a specially built engine with a lot of big bore and different camshaft, and of course it's reverse rotation and blah blah blah. So the engine is basically designed for a boat that's going to run on a race course.
That is fantastic. 75 miles is. Do you call it miles per hour, or do you call
Yeah.
it knots per?
No, we call it miles.
That's fast.
It
That's
is.
fast. I can barely get my Subaru up to that.
No, I know.
Wow, fantastic. So, do you pull her out every once in a while? Does she see the water?
Well, I actually have two of these boats. There's G81 is the other one. This one's G18. And the reason why I have two boats is because I was running in events where we didn't have boats that were sufficiently identical to what I was running, and I decided I had to build another one too. So now I have two of them. And as you'll see from pictures that I show you, the boats look beautiful together.
Yeah, I bet.
And Bill Marcussen, who you'll be talking to in a few minutes,
Yeah.
Bill drives the other one,
Okay.
and I drive this one.
So she will see Lake Winnipesaukee.
Oh yeah, sure.
Does she go anywhere else?
Yeah, we have Wolfeboro, the event in Wolfeboro in
Right.
September, which is what we're talking about here.
Right.
But it goes up to Canada, and we're going up to Canada in July to run the opening ceremonies all 3 days in their big hydroplane racing event up there. So
Well, great.
yeah.
Well, thank you for the quick tour, Bob. I mean, there's so much more to see, and we'll try. We'll try and see some more before we're all finished. But that was a great introduction.
And there's always a next time, Jack. You're always welcome here.
Love it. And
We'll remind you of that.
yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think this regatta, which we're going to talk about next, is just an awesome thing for the area,
Yeah, it
a
is.
real signature event.
Yeah.
And hopefully the area can keep the energy around that and keep it going. So,
Yeah, we work hard on it.
all right, I'm going to talk to Bill here, and we're going to talk about the regatta. So, see you by the next boat, folks. I'm here with Bill Marcussen. Bill, thanks so much for coming on.
Well, you're welcome.
Want to talk
Glad to be here.
about this regatta they speak of that happens in Wolfeboro Bay. I guess it's in mid-September. Is that right,
It
Bill?
is second weekend in September. We run several classes of vintage race boats on 1 mile course in Wolfeboro Bay. This will be the 13th running of our regatta. The first one was in 2000, and then beginning in 2001, we have run it every other year since then.
How did it come about? What's the history?
So I wasn't here at the beginning, but I have heard tell that at a Halloween party in 1999, several local owners of vintage watercraft, some of which had been race boats, got to talking about how we really ought to have a vintage race boat regatta here on Lake Winnipesaukee. And the first one, which was held in 2000, was almost exclusively boats owned by local people, with some folks having 3 and 4 boats they owned in the regatta. And then the following year, it expanded and brought folks in from other areas as well.
So, how do you qualify to enter or be a part of the regatta? What's the limitations, et cetera?
So, the requirement to participate is one of having the right equipment and completing the right training to be able to drive a boat on the course. Drivers that haven't participated in our regatta before, we refer to as rookies, and at the beginning of the regatta, they run on the course by themselves with all of the safety folks out on the course just to observe and make sure that they understand how our course works, and we have a confidence level that they're going to play well with the other participants.
Is there a speed limit to this regatta?
So there is no speed limit. One of the things that we do, are required to do to conduct this event is get a special permit from the Marine Patrol that allows us to run with no speed restriction or sound restriction when boats are on our course. So the normal speed limit on the lake does not apply to the running of laps on our course.
Fantastic. So it's a mile course. It's in Wolfeboro Bay. Would you say that this regatta is a spectator sport?
So it is. It's very popular with the participants, and it's also an exciting event for non-participants to watch. You can watch it from the docks in Wolfeboro, at the town docks. You can watch it from other shore locations around the bay. A number of people will watch from private boats that are arrayed around the outside of the course, out on the water. I think there's something about boats going fast and making a lot of noise that just is endearing to people. So we've found over the years that particularly when the weather is nice, you get large throngs of spectators watching.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, certainly people like loud and fast motorcycles around here, so why not vintage boats?
Exactly, exactly.
Why not up the game a little bit, right?
And our event has become one that participants particularly look forward to for several reasons. The location
Beautiful.
is beautiful. The town of Wolfeboro does a great job of embracing spectators and participants. Mid-September is just a nice time of year to be in this area. The summer rush has quieted down a little bit, so it's a little bit quieter, and yet there's still lots of things for folks to do.
Sure.
And another reason that our participants like coming here is over the years we've established a reputation for running a well-organized, safe event, and participants know that they're going to get the opportunity to run lots of times while they're here, which is not always the case at these regattas in other locations. And we are the only vintage regatta in the Northeast.
All right.
Years ago, there used to be vintage regattas in upstate New York and out in Buffalo, and sadly, those have just gone by the wayside.
Well, fantastic. We need to keep that up.
Absolutely.
Signature event. Is there best in show, or you don't do that kind of thing?
We don't do that. This is
Yeah.
vintage regattas are demonstration events, so we don't time the participants. We don't award trophies for a winner. And what works best for the spectators and the participants is to have boats that are pretty evenly matched with drivers that have similar levels of skill to participate and put on a good show.
Yeah.
Occasionally we'll get somebody that gets out there and he wants to run away from the rest of the pack and is halfway around the course, and that's not as interesting for folks to watch, and it's not as much fun for all the other folks as well.
Is it driver only in the boat, or can they take others?
So some boats are driver only. Some boats are two-man crew, and that really harkens back to the day when you would have a driver and a riding mechanic on the boat, and the riding mechanic actually performed a live ongoing function in adjusting the running of the engine and other things that needed to be done, as well as dealing with breakdowns and issues, not unlike back in the day in automobile racing when you would have a two-man crew in the car, a driver and a riding mechanic.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, Bill, thanks so much for background on the regatta.
Well, you're welcome.
Can't wait for it in mid-September. I want to bring on Patrick and talk about this this vehicle, this boat we see behind us. Patrick?
Good morning.
Good morning. Behind us, I understand this little lady is called Midnight Miss. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you give us a little history about Midnight Miss?
Midnight Miss is a Lauterbach Grand Prix hydroplane. She was built in 1972. In 1973, she won the APBA National Championship. She found her way over to New Zealand and Australia. In that time, in 1990, she held the women's water speed record, which was right around 170 miles an hour. She's
Wow, 170?
170.
Okay.
She holds 4 vintage championships in Australia. She was brought back here around 2013, and I took possession of her in 2019.
Wow, that must have been a great day for you.
It was a great day, and I can say probably one of the scariest rides of my life.
Wow. So what, 170 miles an hour, how long can she sustain that?
When you're doing speed records, it's done in 2 directions. It's a flying mile. They run one direction, figure out the speed. You have to run the opposite direction within 60 minutes of that one. Then they average the 2 together.
Would you say it's safe to say she uses high test?
This particular boat actually runs on alcohol, known as methanol. It's 478 cubic inches, big block Chevrolet, supercharged, dynoed at 1,200 horsepower.
And water cooled?
Water cooled. Every bit of the water is picked up from the bottom of the rudder and forced through the engine. There is no water pump, so as long as you're moving, you have cooling.
And I imagine methanol is a pretty clean fuel?
It's a very clean fuel. The downside is it burns twice as much compared to race gas or gasoline.
And you can't really go to the gas station to get methanol.
No, my closest place is about an hour from here to pick it up.
Okay. Wow. That's great background. I noticed tennis balls in the exhaust. That's just to keep some stuff out, right?
During transport, if it was to rain, that keeps water and stuff from getting into the engine.
Yeah. And so you can see here, folks, you know, here's a list of the accomplishments of Midnight Miss. I'm sure Patrick intends to add to that list. Yeah.
Well, we don't actually race anymore.
No.
As it was mentioned earlier, we put on exhibition, but the whole idea is to make it look like we are. But you put a bunch of guys out with a whole bunch of horsepower, we tend to go fast. Yeah. And we're probably running down the straights with this in the 130 mile an hour range.
Okay. Will we see her on Regatta weekend?
She'll be here on Regatta weekend, and we're hoping, if all goes as planned, there'll be 6 others to run with it.
That is exciting. So something else to look forward to that weekend. All right. We're going to wrap that up. And Patrick, thanks so much for describing Midnight Miss, and looking forward to the Regatta weekend.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, folks, so we're getting near the end of this episode, but it wouldn't be complete if we didn't have Martha Cummings on, the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Boat Museum, which is located here in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. Hi, Martha.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Well. I'm having a ball. Yet another vintage boat that we stand in front of. This garage at an undisclosed location is pretty amazing, I'll tell you that much. Martha, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the New Hampshire Boat Museum. Whose idea was that? Where did it come from, and how long have you been around?
So the Boat Museum's been around since 1992.
Okay.
It was founded by a group of vintage and classic boating enthusiasts and collectors, if you will. And they saw that there was a need to really capture that boating heritage, the history, the nostalgia, and the stories of how we are, such boating fanatics, if you will, in New Hampshire today, particularly freshwater lakes and rivers. And so they started it in what is now the Lagos restaurant over in Meredith. That's their first.
Oh.
That was their first space for the museum. And then they were sort of on a search for a more permanent location. So for a couple years, they were kind of in the Meredith and Laconia area, and then searching, Alton, Wolfeboro, kind of around Lake Winnipesaukee for the right landing, if you will.
Yeah.
And then in 2000, they landed in Wolfeboro, and we have been in the old Allen A. Camp Resort Theater and Dance Hall that was built in 1954 since 2000. So we've been there for 23 years, which is pretty amazing.
I still refer to it as the old LNA Resort, but it's been a while. So 2000, so that's 23 years. Fantastic. So obviously it's a place people can visit and see some vintage boats, but is there more to the
Absolutely.
New Hampshire Boat Museum
There
than just a
is.
physical space?
There is a little more than just the physical space, actually. I'm glad you asked.
We ask the probing questions here.
We have a number of programs, hands-on classes, as well as programs that people can attend. Educational, of course,
Naturally.
but fun. So if you want to build your own wooden boat, we have a boat building class that runs. We have 2 sessions that run in the summer. It's about to start in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So there are several different types of boats that you can choose from and build your own. We
Not
also
a full-size boat.
Oh yeah, a canoe, a full-size canoe,
Okay.
a full-size
All right.
kayak,
Yeah, that's
a
cool.
rowboat.
Yeah.
So people really enjoy that, and a number of the volunteers who help teach the participants of the class were boat builders themselves, and they've come back and volunteered to help with the class. We also have a model yachting group called the Back Bay Skippers, and so they race and have their own model yacht regattas on Back Bay.
I've seen those people out there doing
They
that.
are,
They are into it.
They are into it. They are a very competitive bunch. However, they will let you learn and try one out, and then you can also join our model yacht kit building class that
They'll
is
let
taking
you
place. participate
until such time as you
you win.
one of their yachts.
And if you
You're
beat
out.
them, if you win.
There's
So-
a big group that does that. That's
There is.
cool.
And I should mention that these classes are not just for adults. We have
Okay.
classes that are for youth and adults as well. So boat building starts at age 12. Model yacht kit building around the same age as well, 12 years old. But we also partner with the Wolfeboro Parks and Rec Department and the Wolfeboro Public Library. So we have story time with the library for the little ones. And then we have our community sailing program with Wolfeboro Parks and Rec. So that takes place on both Lake Wentworth and Lake Winnipesaukee.
Beautiful.
Youth and adults who can participate. And so we maintain the boats, and
Wow.
Parks and Rec does the teaching.
I'm supposed you're going to tell me you have 2 vintage boats that people can go out on.
Well, that is the other fun part about visiting the boat museum. Once you come in and you see boats like this and you feel really inspired to get out on the lake, you can do that. You can go have your own experience on the lake in either the Millie B, which runs out of Wolfeboro,
I won't ask what B stands for.
or the Miss Lauren, which runs out of Paugus Bay with our partner Northwater Marine.
Well,
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
So congratulations on all those programs, Executive Director. That's, as an Executive Director of WEDCO, that's a lot of work, a lot of sheep to keeping, in a row, and
We have
congratulations.
a really good team. We have an excellent staff and an excellent group of volunteers that really make all of that happen.
Well, that's great.
So.
That's great. And in the not too distant future, we're talking expansion.
We are talking expansion. It has been a project for the museum, the Board of Trustees, over the past several years to grow, because our collection that we have of boats and motors and whatnot has expanded, and we needed an expanded building to be able to share that with the public. Over this past year, we had an opportunity to buy a 24,000 square foot building in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, right on Route 25. And it's very exciting, big blank canvas of a space, and we've just gone through our first phase of renovations. So on to the exhibit planning.
Well, that's exciting. Great news. Martha, thanks so much for joining us on this special on-site taping of WEDCOnomics.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and I know you're a nonprofit, and
We
people
are.
can get behind you and support you and help with the massive amount of work that's going to be involved in turning 24,000 square feet into a really cool space. So
Thank
thanks,
you.
Martha.
Yes,
Thanks
yes.
for joining. And thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. My name is Jack Terrill. I'm the Executive Director of WEDCO, or Wentworth Economic Development Corp., and we are in business to help small business. We advise, finance, and promote the sector. I want you all to come out for the regatta in mid-September, and I want to give a special thanks to Timothy at Wolfeboro Community TV, who did this broadcast. He was very brave to come out, and don't forget to support Wolfeboro Community TV. It's a great asset. Thanks so much, folks. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.